Who's the guy with all the dirt on Hollywood's biggest scandals?
I'm AJ Benza, and I'll flip you. Heads I win, tails you lose.
What does he know?
Let me tell you something. You haven't lived until you've been thrown out of an orgy for being too funny.
Sometimes you gotta go to an author, TV host, and bigger-than-life personality to learn fame is a bitch.
There's an expression in Latin. The whole world changes in the time it takes to cook asparagus. It sounds much funnier in Italian, but you get the point. There's also another great expression I live by. Nothing happens, and nothing happens, and nothing happens, and then everything happens. And both these expressions are kind of apropos with all the shit going down right now in Hollywood and D.C., even San Francisco, which I'll get to later. But maybe you listeners out there know an anecdote in Polish or a saying in Spanish, or who knows, with the way America is opening up lately, maybe there's a saying in Farsi that means the same thing. I can tell you there's a saying in America that I don't think has any translation in any other language, and that's fame is a bitch.
I spend a lot of time in the backyard, and in '09 it was me, your fire pit, that accidentally started a wildfire when one of my embers landed on dry brush.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com, brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
I can't do these shows quick enough. I sit at home some nights and I go crazy with how quickly and how often people are just dropping like flies. And on top of the real stories and the real accusations, there are rumors that start to whip around. And once the Santa Ana winds get a hold of those rumors, they turn into raging stories. And some, you got to stand back and watch just rage on. Like this new stuff being said about Michael Stipe from REM and how apparently he's been a predator for boys for years. And the talk, at least the first week of December, when I was sitting down to do this, was that Stipe was allegedly HIV. And he allegedly screwed around with Lucas Haas, the actor. And people make the connection because Lucas kind of looks very thin and physically looks kind of weak. Is he HIV too? That's crazy. There's even a Michael Douglas rumor floating around. And, you know, there are always rumors about which actresses in the early days of Miramax happily bedded down with Harvey to cement their careers. Jennifer Lawrence is the one we hear about now. But the early days, Gwyneth Paltrow's name was bandied about quite a bit. In fact, I heard that dumb website she has, Goop. I heard that's an inside joke for get off our pussies. No, I just made that shit up. But you see how it could start. That's how rumors can become stories. And that's what's happening every day now in the media. But I was going to come on today and tell you, hey, Danny Masterson's about to be fired from his Netflix show, The Ranch. But then it happened. What's yet to happen, maybe, is the reason why Ashton Kutcher, who's also on the show, was kind of sort of hoping this was going to happen on account he's behind that great group that keeps an eye on stopping human sex trafficking. And honestly, people were really getting pissed off because here we have House of Cards. And their fans are going ballistic because as soon as Kevin Spacey's allegations were corroborated, they yanked that show off. And without a doubt, that's Netflix's biggest show. And then Louis C.K. fans went ballistic because the two brilliantly funny specials he shot last year for Netflix were yanked and can never be found again. They're no longer available. But yet Masterson, who's had allegations hanging over his big fuzzy head from 4 women who said they were raped, he was getting to stay on The Ranch. So Netflix heard the noise, and I'm sure they were going to make a move, but apparently a woman approached a Netflix executive at a youth soccer game out here in L.A., and trust me, the parents out here in Studio City, Sherman Oaks, North Hollywood, there's some big people out here. A lot of shit goes down on the sidelines when the little boys and girls are playing, but this woman approaches this Netflix exec, who's also a soccer mom, and the lady says, when are you going to pull Masterson off that show? And the executive goes, well, we just don't believe the girls. And then the soccer mom, who's doing the asking, goes, oh, really? I'm one of those girls who was raped. Very uncomfortable. The next day, Masterson was gone. And that's what happens when you can put a face on it. I was also going to come on and say that you can bet the studio, Fox, is not going to let Bryan Singer finish the movie Bohemian Rhapsody. And then, boom, his ass is thrown to the curb. And poor guy. I didn't know this, but it seems that somebody in his family is suffering or they're ill. He had to leave England to tend to a sick parent in L.A. Not sure what parent it is, but it's probably his mother because she's sick to his stomach that she ever gave birth to this monster. And I'll get to him in a few minutes. But first, I got to talk about the real world for a second and something that made me sick all over again. And that's the murder of Kate Steinle, and that Kate Steinle died again the other day. And her family died again, too. A good American family traumatized again. Not only was this illegal alien piece of shit who killed her found not guilty of murder, he was also not even found guilty of manslaughter. A bullet through her throat. What if an American guy killed a Mexican woman and was found not guilty? Can you imagine the protests and the fucking hashtags that would sprout up? And you know celebrities would be the first one to start those. A girl was killed. She died in her father's arms. And the killer, a piece of shit whose name I'm not going to say, but as you know, was deported 5 times, left the courtroom smiling. Now, I know a lot of you out there feel great that men are being destroyed for looking at a woman the wrong way. Men are getting fired, and their careers are going up in flames for touching a woman 30 years ago, or asking her to dinner the wrong way, or suggesting maybe they should date, what have you. But a girl was killed by an illegal alien, and she died in her father's arms. And nothing happened. It went away. I don't see any liberals talking about it. There wasn't a march or a protest like the ones that liberals demanded over old statues of white guys on fucking horses. Nancy Pelosi, who loves to stand up and spit out some of her demented mind and thoughts, she didn't say shit. That's all. That's all I wanted to say. I don't have an answer for this, except to say that the only absolute justice that now needs to happen is for Kate Steinle's father to hunt that scumbag down and shoot him dead in the street, in the shit city that he found sanctuary in 5 times before. And by the way, California has a senator in San Francisco, Scott Wiener. Why are so many dicks named Wiener? Scott Wiener says when Trump spoke about illegal aliens in the wake of the Steinle murder, he was just stoking the flames of hatred. You can't have that. I know. Trump's the problem. By the way, this Wiener, do your research. He's a real winner. He's also the guy who introduced the bill that passed, that says willingly passing on the HIV virus to another person is no longer a felony. It's now just a misdemeanor. It's like punching somebody in the face. Bloody nose and HIV. Same shit. So I went and found a very telling picture of this guy on the internet. Wiener, surprise, surprise, openly gay, which is fine. Don't you hate that we always have to say, oh, it's fine that he's gay? I find myself doing it all the time. But look, Wiener's gay. Who cares? But here's the hypocritical shit I love to talk about. The guy's wearing an open leather vest at some gay pride parade, posing with his boyfriend or husband or who knows. And he's showing off his abs. And he's also wearing a leather tie. This is also the senator who lobbied for alcohol to be served until 4 a.m. in San Francisco, as well as making it easier for venues to hire DJs, no matter how small or intimate the building is. This guy just wants to fucking party. I didn't vote for him. Somebody did. So, look, I got to say, I'm proud of being one of a number of loud voices who wanted Bryan Singer down. And it looks like we helped make a difference with a guy who has been a known pedophile who continued to get work and stay at the top of the list of directors whose studios love to employ. And let me say alleged pedophile, okay? But the bad news is this is also another hurdle now in ever seeing Bohemian Rhapsody. Is this ever going to make it to theaters? It's been a 10-year journey. So now we got Mr. Robot's Rami Malek is playing Freddie Mercury. You know, originally the studio said the reason for Singer leaving England was a health matter, like I explained. But there have been rumors surrounding Singer and the production of this movie for a long time, including that the film took breaks more than once because Singer went AWOL from the London shoot. Insiders said the studio still thinks they can get the movie on track for a December 25th, 2018 release, but they wouldn't comment on how far along the production is before they had to bring on a new director, this guy named Dexter Fletcher, who I don't know much about. But it becomes very difficult when a film is in production and the filmmaker becomes unreliable. This wasn't the only film Singer has done this to either. While Fox says having discreet discussions about replacing him, there were days when the cinematographer got up from his chair and went ahead and directed some scenes. So, look, the film is a couple of weeks away from completing principal photography, and this Dexter Fletcher guy is aboard, and we'll see what happens. But this shit happened on Superman Returns, too, when Singer was directing that, right down in Australia. He was a no-show the first week of the shoot. The first week, AWOL. Everybody's like, where's Brian? Then they go, oh, wait a minute. Last weekend was the Sydney LGBT Mardi Gras. I think Brian had a fucking ball, okay? Because I've seen pictures of parties he's thrown at his house where you have at least 40 to 50 naked guys. And I say guys loosely. They're boys, too. In a pool that, for one particular party, was dyed red. So it just looked awful. And they're all naked, and this is Singer having a ball. So God knows what the hell happened at the Mardi Gras. But, you know, maybe it's better this way for Freddie Mercury fans, which I'm a big one. Rami Malek looks nothing like Freddie Mercury. And you do realize he's in the 5'5" and under club, right? And Freddie was not 5'5". And the mustache he's wearing during the shoots, it's so obviously fake. It's like they copied John Oates' mustache from Hall & Oates. This kid can't even grow a real mustache. And I think that should have been a prerequisite for the role of Freddie Mercury. Actor must be able to grow a thick broom handle mustache. Now, on the show, Mr. Robot, and in life, Malik really has no outgoing personality. Now, I heard he's a very nice kid, and I heard it was really hard for him one day to walk off the set, to get the nerve to walk off the set because Bryan Singer threw something at him or some shit. Must have been on the rag. And at that point, Fox said, holy shit, we got a problem on our hands. And this is way before we knew anything about this. But when I see Freddie Mercury on videos, or when I saw him in person years ago, jump on stage and sing at stadiums all over the world, he lit the fucking world on fire. You could have seen a Freddie Mercury concert, a Queen concert from space. You know, if Rami Malek ever saw the size of the crowd at Wembley Stadium screaming for Freddie back in the day, he would have shit his pants. Freddie had more charisma than the next 5,000 guys. Malek, not so much. I think it's bad casting for a film that's had 10 years of bad luck. Look, the only person who could have played Freddie Mercury perfectly was Sacha Baron Cohen. I know that fell through. I forget the reasons why, but that would have been the best version to see. I think maybe, I really do, I think maybe it's better this film doesn't see the light of day. Because the memory of how great Freddie Mercury is, I don't want to be tainted by Rami Malek's performance. But on top of all this Bryan Singer shit, students at USC are now calling for the removal of Bryan Singer's name from the school's Division of Cinema and Media Studies. And they got a petition going on change.org that I think got 2,000 signatures. These are the same kids who got the school to refuse a very sudden and very silent big money donation, 7 figures, from Harvey Weinstein after his allegations just surfaced. Here's some money. Nah, we don't want it. So I think Singer's name is going to come down from that building very soon. And in case you forgot, Singer has had more than one allegation brought up against him in recent years. There was the initial sexual abuse suit that was eventually dropped by his accuser, Michael Egan, a young actor in 2014, said that Singer abused him when he was trying to be an actor and a model, and he was a minor in the late 1990s. Then a second accuser filed the lawsuit against Singer in 2014. And in that lawsuit, the kid claimed when he was 17, Singer tried to force him to have sex. And this sounds exactly like Bryan Singer. I know a guy in New York who dresses as a transsexual. He's pre-op. But he goes out and he dresses up. He looks like, it's really freaky. He looks like a Filipino or a model from Thailand. Very slight features, and he looks kind of beautiful. It's creepy. And 2 weeks ago, I was told that he met Singer at a party, and they fucked right then and there. And then there was another big-name guy that I can't say yet, but same thing with him. And I said to the guy, you should go forward and sell this information, make some money. He goes, no, I'm going to use it as blackmail down the road. So guys like Singer, they hemorrhage so much money because people like this guy I know in New York, this little gay guy who likes to have fun and put big stars in compromising positions, pardon the pun. They get money from these people very quietly, and we're never the wiser for it. But before I finish, I want to say, back in 2014, 2015, Michael Egan's dad wrote more than one letter about his son's situation with Bryan Singer, and he wrote them to the FBI. And he sent them return receipt requested and certified mail to one person, Robert Mueller. The same guy who's been working his ass off to prove that Trump colluded with Russia. You know what Mueller did with those letters from Singer's dad? Not a fucking thing. Never returned a letter. They never heard from him. Nothing. But he's hell-bent on figuring out if Trump ever spoke to Putin on the side. And that's a disgrace. And the FBI makes some big mistakes lately. Way back in the 1950s, my father, who was an undercover cop for the U.S. Treasury, and was really good. I mean, he was very good. He made two of the biggest busts at that time in New York City's history. Several $1 million. A Jewish guy named Sally Gelb, who was working for Waxy Gordon, running heroin and hashish. Big bust. And my father's profile started to get very big. So big that he was contacted about coming aboard the FBI. And they reached out to him through his superior, partly because his face was becoming too well known, and it made his street work very dangerous. Because my father also tailed mobsters and shit. So he always told me, when he spent time with the FBI personnel in D.C., he couldn't believe these were the guys who were supposed to be the elite force of men protecting us. And he was just far from impressed. He told me, he said they were a bunch of schmucks, and he passed. He didn't join. And whenever I hear shit like this, like Mueller not lifting a finger about Egan and others being raped by Bryan Singer, I always think about how far ahead of his time my father was and how right he is, and how the older I get, the smarter he gets. But listen, in related movie news, the makers of that pedophile film, An Open Secret, have now put the film on Vimeo, and it's for free. And that is very important. But it's funny, if Mueller had answered his mail a few years ago, that film may have never been made. This is Fame is a Bitch. It's impossible for me not to comment on the big Harvey Weinstein massive story the New York Times ran a few days ago. Front page, and then 2 or 3 pages in the middle of the section. Man, it was hard to get down. And it was also tough to see my name and face in print alongside David Pecker and Dylan Howard, 2 tabloid guys who I've worked for until just recently. I'm glad I participated in this story, because when Jimmy Rutenberg came to me and said they had this story about Harvey reaching out to me for help last December, some of the details were inaccurate. So I was not about to let that go to bed, because I remember as a journalist, that's something we always had to get right. I couldn't sleep at night if I knew that something was just not right. It kept me up. And if it's about me, you better believe I'm going to talk about it. So normally I wouldn't comment, but this time I had to. So my wife gets the paper and I go, look at this. Look at my picture with Dylan Howard and David Pecker. She goes, so what? You love this shit. Yes and no. Let me explain something. I love good journalism, and I loved writing it. I love reading it. And I also love doing TV and movies. But there's such a difference between the two. I get a charge out of all of those things. But the charge I get the most is when I see my name in print. I know it's egotistical and it sounds kind of like, what's wrong with you? But I can't explain it. There's a reason why people get into fields like that. You want to see your name in print. Something happens to your body. We all have electricity running through us. And when you see your name in the paper, there's a jolt that happens in your body. Sometimes it's not a good jolt. I was always told, if you're writing a story about someone, they should never be surprised the name's in the paper the next day. You got to make sure they know your name's going in. So I knew my name was going in. I didn't know my face was, and that's kind of what bothered me. I didn't like the optics of that. Television, on the other hand, or movies, are different than writing. Writing's very cerebral. You're alone. You got to open up this pathway between your heart and your head and hope your 10 fingers can type quickly enough to capture all your thinking. And that's why writing's hard. Acting is very physical. It's very, you got to jump in there and be physical, a lot of movement. I kind of make the comparison of food with acting. Bear with me, it's kind of weird, but I love going shopping for food. I could stay inside a supermarket for 3 hours. I love it. Then I love going home and cooking dinner. I cook dinner every night for my wife and kids. I love that. I don't want to see myself chew. Chewing is like acting. It's an act you've got to do, and you've got to have people see you do it. I think the fact that we watch each other eat, the fact that we watch each other throw food in a hole in our head and talk while we're eating is gross. But that's me. Writing is different. You're alone. Acting is for the world to see. So I don't like that feeling. Anyhow, that's a big tangent. What I wanted to say about this whole thing was I knew a phone call from Harvey Weinstein was coming. My stomach was in knots for days after I cooperated with the story. I picked the phone up 8 o'clock in the morning, the day before the story runs. AJ. Yeah, Harv. You talked to the Times? Yeah, I did. Why? Because, Harvey, they had some inaccuracies, and I had to correct them. No, they didn't. They did. They did not get the story from me. That's a lie. It's not a lie, Harv. Jimmy Rutenberg, I taught the kid. I hired him. He's a great reporter. The part about me being asked to help you told me you wanted me to write a book about you. That was a slam piece, and when people talk negatively about you, you could then find out who they were. That wasn't my idea. It was your idea. Jimmy had it backwards. Can't be. I said it was. But look, that's beside the point. I talked, and I had to do it because my name's in the paper. I got a reputation. I got a family. I'm no different than you in that respect. He said, but guys like you and me, we don't talk. I said, I understand that, but this is different. So he said, what else did you say? I said, nothing. Look, why are you worried about me? Everybody's saying shit about you. Don't you? He goes, who's saying stuff? I said, Harvey. The whole fucking world's talking. They're calling you a monster. Well, it's all bullshit. He said, everything was consensual. I said, with everybody? Everybody. I said, just for shits and giggles, Angie Everhart, you didn't fuck her. Why? I said, why wouldn't you? She's the most gorgeous redhead in the world. No, we're friends. We spent 5 days on a ship. We're friends. I'm not going to go down all the list of girls we talked about because it's a little bit too personal. But look, the guy says what he says. Everybody called me on this story after it appeared. The Wall Street Journal, the News, the Post, New York Magazine, CBS This Morning, Dateline. Everybody called. Everybody got a no comment. Okay? But there is a side of the world that thinks all publicity is good publicity, as long as they spell your name right. That kind of shit. Yeah, yes and no. But not when it's on the body of a friend whose reputation has been ruined. And Harvey is standing by his statement, and he's got a bulldog flack named Sally Hoffmeister, who's also had a career as a journalist, so she knows what the fuck she's doing. This is a pit bull protecting a bull mastiff over accusations that he hurt a bunch of cute puppies. So it's bad optics for sure. But then I got a phone call from Richie Esposito, who's a major, major journalist. He gave me my start, hired me in 1991 at Newsday, at New York Newsday, and then was with me at the Daily News. He's like my godfather when it comes to writing and investigating. Richie said, you look great on the paper. You're a real guy. You said what you said. Look, he said, everybody's hiding behind lawyers. Lawyers are hiding behind lawyers. You spoke up and said, I helped the guy until I couldn't help him. I said, but the picture with the three guys, he says, AJ, I saw a picture of you next to a picture of a guy worth $150 million. That tells me you're in good company. You know what the fuck you're doing. All right, so you might be right. Maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. But either way, it's amazing what some people can take and keep getting up from. You may want to hate Harvey Weinstein for what's been alleged. You may think he's through and will never come back from where he's at. I'm not so sure. This town, at the end of the day, is always about making money. Everybody may be saying all the right things right now, but if Harvey Weinstein had his hands on the next Pulp Fiction, or the next Shakespeare in Love, or the next whatever, the people who'd want to make money with him and enjoy the accolades and the success would form a line that would stretch up and down the 405, even with walls of flames on each side of the highway. I'm AJ Benza, and this is Fame is a Bitch. You know, I don't just try to find dirt on people. There are many days when I try and help a person and keep the dirt off them. If I see a person who I think is being treated unfairly, I reach out. I've known Jeremy Piven for over 15 years, almost 20 years. First met him when Harvey Weinstein optioned my first book, Fame Ain't a Bitch, and wanted to turn it into a movie with Johnny Depp playing me. And that fell through. Then Harvey wanted to make it a TV show. And by the way, when you hear Mary Hart saying that the movie's going to happen and you watch your face morph into Johnny Depp's face while the E.T. music is playing in the background, life feels pretty fucking good at that moment. But like I said, it didn't happen. So Harvey then tried to turn my book into a TV show. And one night he calls me to a restaurant in West Hollywood. We're having a meeting with Jeremy Piven. I want Piven to play you. I said, Piven? I mean, he's okay, but he's like John Cusack's lackey. I don't know how to explain it. He goes, you're out of your mind. Piven's got a Q rating that's through the roof. And he's a great actor, and he's very well received. And you don't know what you're talking about. So I said, all right. So we meet Piven, and he's really great, and he's charming, and we're going over the stories in the book, and he loves the book, and he thinks this is going to be great, and he's really into it, and man, I felt great again. So the dinner ends, a few nights turns into a few weeks turns into a month turns into 3, and Piven calls to say he just got a script from HBO that's ready to go, and he just couldn't turn it down. So he had to turn down our idea. That script was Entourage, and that's showbiz. Now, in the years since, I've hung out with Jeremy 5 or 6 times, some holidays, with a mutual friend. Actually, one night he called me to his house and cooked me dinner while he recorded me saying his lines for an upcoming role playing a New York City cop in the movie Sin City 2. Apparently, him being from Chicago, he wanted to get the real New York kind of accent down. So he taped my voice, played it in his ear the whole plane ride on the way to Chicago, or wherever they shot the movie, to get into character. I saw the movie later on, and he didn't sound anything like me, but whatever floats your boat. But look, I'm happy to see Kevin Dillon sticking up for Piven recently on a red carpet in light of all these rape allegations. And as you know, I've been doing the same thing for him for weeks now. In fact, I reached out to him with a direct message on Twitter. I said, hey man, let's talk. I've been speaking on your behalf about all this shit on my show, and I'd like to help you. And he writes back, LOL. And I go, you're laughing out loud? And he writes back, yes. I said, I don't think you understand. I'm seriously trying to help you. Do you understand? And he writes back, I do. Look, after that, I just said, okay, whatever. I tried. Good luck. Meanwhile, his CBS show was just canceled, and who knows what the hell else is going to happen to the guy. But I don't want to make too much of that because I don't see him being guilty at all. And the thought that any woman can stand up and take a guy down, and here we are 6 or 7 weeks since this whole thing started, that really scares the shit out of me. And it really ought to show you that fame is a bitch.